So we go back to our initial discussion on formulation of finite element method working from governing differential equation, and these are the equations of motion or equilibrium equation as we call them. And uh, direct fallout of Newton's second law of motion, law of momentum. So all forces acting on the body, they have to be equal to rate of change of momentum, and this is the rate of change of momentum per unit volume. So finding approximate solution, if we substitute for stresses in terms of displacements and express strains in terms of displacements and strains in terms of stresses using constitutive relations. So we can transform these equations in terms of displacements and by using these differential operators and constitutive relation matrix. So the objective is to find approximate solution for the displacements. Displacements along x, displacements along y, and displacement along z. In case of Cartesian frame of reference, we can have similar displacement deformation components in other frames of reference, for example, spherical coordinate system or cylindrical coordinate system. Doesn't matter. Right? So eventually, once we have these we admit these approximations and substitute in this differential equation, then we are going to have this domain residual. So this is the error that we have, domain residual, and the whole point of approximate solution is to minimize this error in the equilibrium equations or the governing differential equation of the problem. So we do that governing differential equation, minimization of error of the governing differential equation by using the method of weighted residuals, statement of weighted residuals. So we multiply by some arbitrary weighting functions and integrate it over the domain of the problem, and term by term integration will lead us to the governing different the solution. And this is this if we deal with this form, then that is the strong form of method of weighted residual. By using divergence theorem, we can actually transfer this derivative onto the weighting function term and reduce the continuity requirement, and we can have a reduced order derivative on the highest order derivative in the entire equation by, and that is what we call as the weak form. And by looking at this boundary term, we can identify what are the primary variables of the problem and what are the secondary variables of the problem. This term gives us the essential stiffness matrix formulation and displacement. This term gives us the nodal equivalent of forces if W is substituted for the interpolation function for finite element model. Now this is one term which we had been ignoring so far. Uh, the time dependent term, by considering that our problems are slowly varying with time, and in that case the accelerations do not assume any significance, right? So today we will be discussing about this term, what happens when we include this term. So as you can see, the term involves weighting function multiplied by rho, the density of the medium, multiplied by the accelerations uh, in all three coordinate directions. So accelerations along x, accelerations along y, accelerations along z, and this entire thing is integrated over the volume domain, entire problem volume. So how do we compute this integral? This is fine. I mean, we have the approximation for u, and for finite element modeling, we can actually go ahead and develop these entire equations element by element, and we have the variation with respect to x, y, z for the displacements. Displacements are interpolated in terms of values of the uh, displacements at nodes or primary variables at the nodes of finite element, and that provides us continuous variation of u hat, the approximation over the entire element domain. But we do not have anything to uh, about the variation of acceleration within the domain. Right? How do we evaluate this integral, domain integral, if we do not know how the accelerations vary within the element domain? So that is a problem, and the way that is a problem to which nobody knows the answer. Nobody knows how accelerations vary with respect to space coordinates. How accelerations vary from point to point within the domain. Right? So that's a problem for which nobody has an answer. Nobody has a definitive answer and a reasonable answer, logical answer. So what is done is, again we fall back on our experience of interpolation theory, uh, where we saw that no matter what the true nature of the curve is, as long as we are looking at a small enough portion of the uh, curve or surface, it can be modeled to a reasonably good degree of approximation by a lower degree polynomial. And since by design for reasonable accuracy, finite elements have to be of reasonably small domain, and variation, displacement variation within that domain is approximated by using lower degree polynomials, it makes sense to use the same interpolation model to define accelerations in the same way as the displacement variation within the element. So that follows uh, the displacement model for interpolation of displacement field in terms of nodal values, values of the displacement at the nodes as an interpolation model is adopted for modeling the variation of accelerations within the domain as well. So once we do that, then we have very straightforward approximation, let us say. So displacements, we have displacements here, and displacements can be modeled as shape functions matrix multiplied by nodal values of displacement. So in addition to this variation of displacement, we can define accelerations also in the same form. So the accelerations, variation of acceleration within the element will also be given in the same form, uh, interpolation functions for individual nodes and arranged in matrix form, and multiplied by the nodal values of the acceleration. So u is given as NIUI, and similarly we can also have write in the similar fashion u double dot. The accelerations are given as summation of Ni ui double dot summation over I. So that would be the variation of uh, acceleration field within the element domain, and then that integral, domain integral, can be evaluated, and subsequent problems, subsequent analysis can be conducted. Right? So say okay, fine. So what we will do here now, so the acceleration term, we have the domain integral that comes out is uh, so this is the acceleration inertia term, and u double dot, the acceleration variation, is given as u double dot displacement along x, acceleration along x, acceleration along y, and acceleration along z direction, and that is given by sigma ni ui double dot I is equal to 1 to n sigma I ni vi double dot and sigma ni wi double dot. Right, so I can write this in terms of matrix form as n1 0 0 0 n1 0 0 0 n1 n2. So these are the interpolation functions corresponding to node 1, node 2, etc. for any element. U1 double dot, V1 double dot, W1 double dot, U2 double dot, V2 double dot, W2 double dot, and so on. So this is the variation, and this matrix is what we call as matrix M, shape function matrix. And this n transpose is the transpose of this matrix. That is what we use as the weighting function using Galerkin approach. And once we have this, then once we substitute this model, then this model looks like rho is of course constant within the element. So n transpose n u double dot I within the element. And this is of course a nodal value, so they are constants. So I can write this as so this is what we get as mass matrix multiplied by nodal acceleration vector. And together with the equation, so other terms of the equation are, if you look at it, there are boundary terms, some boundary integral. So I would just say n transpose, there would be some secondary variable minus domain integral omega e. So this is gamma e, and there are d d omega, and this is the matrix multiplied by u I, then plus there would be integral omega e, again n transpose the body forces or whatever the forces are there, omega minus this omega e n transpose m d omega multiplied by u double dot I is equal to 0. Right? So this is what will lead to eventually the equations, element level equilibrium equations. So K, this is Ke, stiffness matrix, this is mass matrix, inertia matrix, and this is the force vector, nodal equivalent forces, and these are of course the tractions, boundary tractions. So if we combine all these terms, then we get the familiar equation of motion for element level equilibrium equations. Okay. Mass multiplied by accelerations plus stiffness multiplied by displacements is equal to the body forces, nodal equivalent of body forces, plus the boundary tractions. So these are the element level equilibrium equations which can be and these can be assembled over the entire domain element by element, and the after assembly of all element level equations, the global system of equations is obtained as m u double dot plus k u is equal to f plus q, whatever. Right? And then we impose the boundary condition. Subsequently, impose boundary conditions on the global system of equations and then the equation may be solved for unknowns. Unknown displacements, velocities, and accelerations by using time marching schemes. So, what are these time marching schemes? So, essentially, it is a step-by-step integration. We advance solution in time. So, what we do is these displacement or these equilibrium equations that we have, they are taken as an equilibrium equation for individual instants of time. So we establish equilibrium at time instant ti, and knowing the conditions, entire conditions at time instant ti, we try to predict what is the solution going to be at next time instant, that is time instant I plus 1. So using one time step, whatever the time step interval is, right? So the whole point is the timeline, the time axis. So we have Ti, then we have Ti plus 1, right? And this interval is known as the time step of so this is known as time step. So time step, so that is that means we advance the solution one step at a time in the step of delta t seconds. So we establish the equilibrium. All these terms are time variant, right? Displacement is a function of time, acceleration is a function of time, and these are all functions of time. So forces are functions of time, external tractions are also forces of time. So what we do here is establish the solution at individual time instant, starting from solution at time t is equal to 0 using initial conditions. So initial conditions, it's a second order differential equation in time. So we will need two initial conditions to define the unknown constants of integration. So those two initial conditions are going to be the displacements and velocities. I mean, two sets of initial conditions. So if there are n number of variables, then we will need 2n number of initial conditions. right? And those would be n number of displacement at x is time t is equal to 0, and another n number of velocities uh, of all these nodes at time t is equal to 0. So knowing these initial conditions at time t is equal to 0, we figure out what is the force at the next time instant, and then project the solution or advance the solution, establish the equilibrium at next time instant delta t step forward. Right? So there are several techniques for doing that. All of them can be derived by using what the quadrature rule that we have already discussed. The uh, rectangle rule can be very good way, and Rangakatta or the Euler method that we also saw, the gradient being approximated as function values, uh, difference between the finite difference approximation, and solution can be computed, established by using those formulations. And that is the common route of deriving all these time marching schemes. Of course, uh, we can also develop a finite element model for time, or we can also develop a finite element model involving space and time, but we intentionally do not involve time dimension along with the space dimension, finite element discretization in space dimension, to avoid the problem getting out of hands. The number of variables would increase uh, exponentially. As you can already infer, one dimensional problem, the problem size is much smaller, number of variables is much smaller. You go to two dimension, suddenly the problem becomes a little difficult to handle, and it becomes, if you start modeling three-dimensional domains, then of course it is impossible to deal with uh, by any manual calculations. I mean, computers are absolutely essential. And if you involve time dimension as well, then the entire problem gets compounded to by several orders of magnitude, and it might as well be uh, way beyond the capacities of the computers at our disposal. So what is done is, although theoretically we can do that, we can develop four-dimensional space-time interpolation model, but it is not worthwhile, and we separate out the space discretization from the time discretization, and by doing this space discretization we end up with these ordinary differential equation of motion in time, and we model this time dependent equation by using finite difference approximations. Right? One dimensional finite element model can again be developed here, completely independent of these space discretization, and the results are for lower degree polynomial. It is of course quite consistent with what you obtain by using finite difference approximation. Right? So as you can see, forward finite difference or backward finite difference is consistent with linear approximation of the variation of the field, basic unknown. So finite differences, they are of course very intimately tied with what we obtain by using polynomial approximations. So whichever way these equations can be solved, and by step integration, and that is how it is usually done. The time marching scheme, we start with one time and then project the solution, establish equilibrium at this time instant. We know all the displacement, velocities, acceleration at this time instant now. Now knowing all the quantities here and the force, applied forces at the next time instant, we find out what should be the displacement, velocities and acceleration at the next time instant, so as to establish the dynamic equilibrium, so that the system remains in equilibrium at each of these time instants. We just hope that if it is system is in equilibrium at these two time instants, then it remains in equilibrium in the intermediate period as well, although we do not bother to ensure that equilibrium holds over the entire step length. Right? But because these step lengths are generally very small for stability and accuracy considerations, so if the equilibrium is established at closely spaced time intervals, then there is little to worry about something very untoward happening in between those time instants. So I guess time marching scheme has already been discussed in great detail by uh, Saurabh in his course on numerical methods, and so I will not uh, delve any deeper on this topic. And if you wish to find out more about time marching schemes, I would recommend you to please refer to my NPTEL lectures on time marching schemes. Those are also available on YouTube. Right? Because I have only 10 minutes or so, and I cannot really do justice to time marching schemes in 10 minutes. So, any questions? We can take questions here. And of course, we have characterized inertia matrix, we have characterized stiffness matrix. Damping remains an elusive property. There are several ways of modeling damping, which you must have already learned in theory of vibration course. There are several models in mass proportional damping, stiffness proportional damping, Rayleigh damping, or Covey series damping, or even modal damping, just modal damping for mode superposition analysis. So all those are already taken care of in the vibration course. So I will not repeat that. Any questions?